Welcome. Today, we are diving deep into two incredibly potent verses from the Quran, specifically from Surah An-Naml. What's so amazing about them is how they lay out this stark, pivotal moment on the Day of Judgment, and in doing so, they reveal this beautiful, profound balance between absolute divine justice and truly boundless mercy. So let's get right into it.
So, here's our game plan for this analysis. We're going to kick things off by setting the stage, looking at the context of where these verses sit in the surah. Then we're going to do a real forensic breakdown, going phrase by phrase, digging into the meaning of the words, and seeing how they connect to the much bigger Quranic picture of justice, punishment, and reward.
All right, so first things first. To really get the weight of these verses, you have to understand where they come from. See, they don't just pop up out of nowhere, they are actually part of this powerful, climactic sequence in the Quran that describes the final, world-shattering moments of existence as we know it.
And here they are, Surah An-Naml, verses 89 and 90. You can see right away how they present this powerful dichotomy, right? A fork in the road. They describe two completely different groups of people and their ultimate, final destinations on the Day of Judgment.
Now, everything we're going to talk about today is pulled directly from this source text right here. It's a really detailed exegesis, or tafsir, that just unpacks these verses with incredible depth. And the author starts by making a really important point. These verses are describing the events that happen immediately after the blowing of the trumpet, which is that cosmic cataclysmic event signaling that Judgment Day has officially begun.
So let's start our deep dive with verse 90. This part zeroes in on those who show up on the Day of Judgment carrying, as it says, an evil deed. We're going to look really closely at the specific words the Quran uses here to understand the precise nature of their fate. Okay, so the verse opens with this condition, and whoever brings an evil deed. The term in Arabic is al-sayyi'ah. Now, on a surface level, you might think, okay, that means a sin or a bad act. But our source text argues that it's pointing to something much more specific, something much more fundamental.
And here is where the author makes a really crucial interpretive claim. Based on specific narrations from their tradition, they define the evil deed, al-sayyi'ah, not as just any sin, but as one singular, foundational act, the denial of the wilayah, the divine authority and guardianship of Imam Ali. In this theological view, this specific rejection is seen as the very root from which all other misdeeds and sins grow.
So after the condition comes the consequence. And the language here is wow. It is incredibly graphic and very specific. فَكُبَّتْ وُجُوهُهُمْ فِي النَّارِ. Their faces will be cast into the fire. Let's zoom in on that very first word, فَكُبَّتْ. It's so important.
You see, this is not a neutral word like put or tossed. No way. The source explains that fakubat implies a violent, forceful motion. It means to be thrown headfirst, to be slammed down onto your face. It's an image that is specifically designed to convey the absolute pinnacle of degradation, of dishonor, of humiliation. This isn't just a punishment. It is the total and complete stripping away of any and all dignity.
And the author of our source text really hammers this point home. They explain that falling on your face is the absolute worst kind of fall, and this specific, potent word is chosen to communicate the abject disgrace that comes along with this particular punishment.
This, of course, leads to a very logical and important question, one that the source text itself brings up. Why the specific focus on the face, right? Why not just say, they will be cast into the fire? Why mention the face at all?
Well, the analysis here is just profound. The face is considered the most noble, the most honored part of the human body. Think about it. It's the center of our identity, our senses, our expressions. So for the most honored part of the body to be the point of impact with the punishment, to be dragged and cast down by it, well, that signifies the total, utter degradation of the entire person. Their honor, their identity, their very being, it's all completely disgraced. All right, now let's shift to the final part of verse 90. After painting this absolutely terrifying picture, the verse concludes with a question. And this question really articulates a core principle of divine justice you see throughout the Quran. So the verse poses this question directly to the ones being punished. Are you being recompensed for anything other than what you yourselves used to do? It's a rhetorical question, obviously, and its meaning is incredibly powerful. It's a confirmation that the system they're facing is one of perfect, unassailable justice. The message here is crystal clear. This isn't arbitrary. The source text explains that this phrase is a declaration. The punishment is an exact match for their deeds.
Nothing more and certainly nothing less. There is zero injustice involved. What they are experiencing is simply the direct, unadulterated consequence of their own choices. It is the very definition of perfect justice.
Okay, so we've just walked through the path of the evil deed. Now let's pivot and look at the other side of this divine equation. It's time to deconstruct verse 89, which lays out the contrasting, and thankfully far more hopeful, destiny for those who bring a good deed. So, the verse starts with a structure that is a perfect mirror image of what we just saw. Men ja'a bil hasana, whoever brings a good deed. And just as as-sayyi'a had a very particular definition in this interpretation, so too does al-hasana.
It's probably not a surprise, but the author defines the good deed as the direct counterpart to the evil one. In this specific exegesis, it's the affirmation of the walaya of Imam Ali and the imams who came after him. This is presented as the foundational good deed, the very bedrock of faith upon which all other good actions are meant to be built. But here is where the mirror image shatters. Notice the wording used to describe the reward. The verse says, "Falahu khayrun minha," which means they will have something better than their deed. This completely breaks the one-to-one logic of justice we saw before. This is where we see divine justice being superseded by something even greater.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. It's the central theological point being made here. For evil deeds, the payment is exact justice. You get back precisely what you put in. But for good deeds, the reward is explicitly stated to be better than the deed itself. This isn't the scale of justice anymore. This is the scale of divine grace, of incredible generosity, of mercy, where the return on investment is multiplied far, far beyond the initial act.
Now let's move on to the final part of verse 89. This describes not just the reward for the righteous, but their actual state of being, their psychological and spiritual condition on that incredible, overwhelming day.
The verse finishes with this deeply profound promise, وَهُمْ مِنْ فَزَعٍ يَوْمَئِذٍ آمِنُونَ. From the terror of that day, they will be safe, they will be secure, they will be at peace. And this security is presented as a direct consequence of bringing the good deed.
And the source text is very specific about what this terror is. We're not just talking about some general anxiety. The author explicitly links this to the Quranic concept of al-Faza al-Akbar, the Great Terror. This is believed to be the single most terrifying, overwhelming moment of Judgment Day, a moment of cosmic chaos that will shake every single person to their core. And it is from this specific, ultimate terror that the believers are promised complete sanctuary. Now, a really key feature of this exegesis, and what makes it so compelling, is that the author doesn't just make these claims and leave them there. No, they build this comprehensive case by weaving in numerous other verses from all across the Quran that support and expand on these interpretations. So, let's take a look at how they build this argument.
So, remember that idea of a reward that is better than it? The source doesn't just leave that as a vague, abstract concept. To give it some real substance, the author immediately points us to another verse that actually quantifies this divine generosity.
And there it is. From Surah Al-An'am, this verse states, flat out, that the reward for a good deed is 10 times its like. This establishes a baseline for God's mercy. So, that phrase "better than it" from our main verse has a concrete starting point, a tenfold multiplication, at the very least. But as you're about to see, it doesn't stop there. To create an even more powerful mental image of this exponential growth, this incredible return on investment, the author brings in one of the most famous and beautiful parables in the entire Quran, the parable of the grain of seed.
Just think about that for a second. That imagery is so powerful. A single good deed is like a single seed, but its return can be 700-fold. This shows that the multiplication isn't capped at 10. God's generosity can increase that reward to these incredible, almost unimaginable degrees.
And the author just keeps building this web of interconnected evidence. They cite Surah Al-Qasas, which repeats the better than it principle. They bring in Surah Az-Zumar, which speaks of a reward given without account, which suggests it's literally limitless, immeasurable. They point to Surah An-Nisa, which confirms that God multiplies good deeds, and Surah Yunus, which even mentions an extra increase as ziyada on top of the already generous reward. Every single reference adds another layer, painting this picture of divine generosity that is just truly, truly boundless. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, you can see how these two short verses from Surah An-Naml, when you really unpack them, reveal this complete and profound theology of the afterlife. On one hand, you have a divine justice that is perfect, absolute, and exact. Punishment is never more than what was earned. But on the other hand, you have a divine mercy that operates on a totally different scale. It's generous, it's multiplicative, it's boundless, offering a reward that is always far greater than the deed itself. And it all culminates in the ultimate gift, perfect peace and security on the day of greatest terror. And that leaves us with a thought to ponder. What does this incredible balance between perfect justice and infinite mercy truly tell us about the nature of the divine?